Hey everyone, welcome to Crank It Up Podcast, the YouTube home of Brigand Games. I'm Stephen McHargue, one of the playtesters for Erudia, Battle of Birthrights. Today, I wanted to talk about royal items from my perspective. As I said in the introduction video to Erudia a couple months back when I was interviewed, royal items are my favorite feature of Erudia. Just watching Jim and Major's videos the last 2 weeks just confirms the reason why I love royal items so much. My top 5 only have a few in common with their top 5. It is so much fun to see the different play styles of players be reflected in what different players draft. As Jim explained in his video, although a lot of players have their go-to items, the average overall draft of most items falls in a nice 40 to 50% draft rate when looking at all the playtesters on a whole. With that, let's get into the discussion of my top 5 items. When looking at the percentages, the top 4 items I draft are above 60%. Then everything else is in the 30% range or below. It turns out that I have 2 items tied at 5th place. Instead of picking one, I wanted to touch on both, since Major and Jim have already discussed them, and they do the same thing, raise temporary power to your units, just at different times, and in different ways. The 2 items are the Bevian Glaive and Tears of Undine. I generally pick one or the other depending on what synergy works best. A big example that stands out is that chemists love Tears of Undine and knights love Bevian Glaive. And again, I agree with Major and Jim's points on these items, and I thought they did an excellent job of describing them. At number 4, Ashes of Ifrit is my item of choice. This item is just an overall useful counter card against some classes, and it also synergizes well with others. It allows you to do 3 damage to a unit in a turn when your advanced maneuver is used for 1 damage as well. It's a great overall card, and there seems to never be a moment where I can't find an opportunity to use it. My top 2 and 3 items are tied with the same draft percentage, and so it is very difficult to rank, as they are both very useful with any cards you have. Since this is a top 5 list, and I already cheated with a tie at number 5, I would have to rank at number 3, the Azurin Idol. I just love this item so much. Since there is only 1 copy of each Acolyte and 1 leader in a deck, you are never guaranteed you will see all your Acolytes in a game. Azurin Idol allows instant access to the Acolyte you need in your deck the moment it is needed in a game. Also, the access to your leader, even with the sacrifice of an allied Acolyte, is very important to be able to obtain your leader for any combination of classes you are playing. I can't say enough great things about this card. Now, my number 1 and number 2 draft choices were not even in Major's or Jim's top 5 draft, but to me, they are absolutely essential. At number 2, Dowsing Rod is a favorite item for me. It allows instant access to any item in your deck or discard pile. There are so many good items in Erudia. When I add this royal item to my deck, it allows me to get the item in my deck or recurrent item in my discard pile for whatever calls for the situation I need in the moment. Like Azurin Idol, it allows me to get the card I need most the moment I need it. The only downside is you need to use your support to play Dowsing Rod, and the item you obtain in most cases will need to be used the following turn, unless you got an extra item play. It is a fair trade-off for all the advantages this item has. Ultimately, I draft Azurin Idol and Dowsing Rod as insurance policies that I can be sure to draw the 2 cards for my ultimate play in a game. It requires a leader and my number 1 drafted item, Blade of Erudia. Blade of Erudia adds 5 power to a unit. The only catch is it can only be played on your leader. In most cases, you generally have only 1 leader in your deck, with the exception for fairies because they add 2 more leaders into your deck and are the only secondary class in the base game that can do that. With Blade of Erudia and your leader in your hand, on your turn, you can generally drop at least 10 power with only using 2 maneuvers. This leaves your bolster or deplete open to do whatever other shenanigans you need to do to break a battlefield, and generally get first from so much power. A lot of times from this drop, I can solo a battlefield, and to add icing to this item, after a battlefield scores, you have the option to remove or banish Blade of Erudia from the game, and put your leader on the bottom of the deck. Because of the great payoff from this card, I rarely enter a game without it. Sure, you might not always be able to pull it off, But I just love dropping your leader and Blade of Erudia to win a battlefield, and always have my opponent scared of when that large drop will happen on my turn. Well, that is my top 5 drafted royal items. I hope it gives a glimpse of the type of player I am and my playstyle. Royal items continue to be my favorite feature of Erudia, and I'm excited to see what new royal items are brought into the game in the future. Do you agree with me that Blade of Erudia and Dowsing Rod are the best royal items? Or do you agree with Jim or Major over me? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.